The discovery, an unnatural death. Found lying lifeless on the cold ground, her body positioned next to an electrical outlet with the prong of a plug resting loosely in her hand, Mrs. Linda appeared, at first glance, to be the victim of a tragic household accident. Onlookers immediately assumed she had been electrocuted. However, law enforcement investigators would soon uncover a series of suspicious clues that pointed to a much darker reality. A solitary woman dies under mysterious circumstances at home. According to the official case files, on the afternoon of the first day of the Lunar New Year in 2017, January 28, 2017, a day traditionally reserved for celebration in new beginnings, residents of Hanlap Village in Tai Bin Province were struck by shock and horror. Mrs. Linda, born 1952, a woman known for living a quiet, solitary life, was discovered dead inside her own home. At the moment of discovery, the victim was found on the floor adjacent to an electrical socket, clutching a plug. The initial consensus among the villagers was that Mrs. Linda had suffered a fatal electric shock. However, the victim's sharp-eyed relatives noticed several anomalies on the body and the surroundings that did not add up. Suspecting foul play, they immediately alerted local authorities. Upon receiving the distress call, the district police coordinated with specialized forensic units from the provincial police department to descend on the scene and initiate a full-scale investigation to uncover the truth. Investigators from the provincial police examining the crime scene where Mrs. Linda was murdered on the first day of the Lunar New Year, 2017. However, when law enforcement forces arrived, they faced an immediate hurdle. The crime scene had been severely compromised. Due to the chaos and panic, grieving family members and neighbors had crowded into the house and critically had moved the victim's body from its original position. Despite the disturbed scene, the initial forensic examination revealed highly disturbing details. There were 19 distinct marks of trauma on the victim's body, including a large, deep bruise on her head. Crucially, investigators noted that one of the victim's earrings had been torn off, leaving a laceration on her earlobe. Scouring the floor for evidence, detectives located a gold earring lying a short distance from where the body was found. Furthermore, they discovered a suspicious brown stain, suspected to be dried blood, smeared on a sack of rice inside the house. To conclusively determine the cause of death, the police requested a forensic autopsy. However, they hit a wall of resistance. The victim's family, stricken with grief and cultural apprehension, initially refused to allow the procedure. It took significant time and persistent persuasion by the authorities to convince the family to consent to the autopsy, a step vital to finding justice for Mrs. Linda. The results from the Provincial Police's Criminal Techniques Division, combined with the forensic analysis from the Ministry of Public Security's Institute of Criminal Science, painted a grim picture. The mechanism of death was not electrocution, but mechanical asphyxiation caused by the compression of the airway. With this scientific confirmation, the police officially reclassified the incident. This was no accident, it was a homicide. Profiling the victim and establishing theories. During the preliminary investigation, detectives built a profile of the victim. Mrs. Linda was a solitary, gentle woman living in a house of gratitude, a home built for the poor by charity. She maintained good relations with her neighbors and was not known to have any conflicts or enemies. The investigation team posited two primary theories. An intruder broke in to commit burglary, was discovered by the victim, and silenced her to cover their tracks. The murder was the result of a personal vendetta or emotional conflict. However, the evidence posed a contradiction. The victim was classified as a verified impoverished resident with no valuable assets. Furthermore, the crime scene examination showed no signs of forced entry, prying, or ransacking. The victim's gold earring, though torn from her ear, was left on the floor, not stolen. Based on these factors, investigators systematically ruled out the motive of robbery or theft. The manhunt begins.
Determined to crack the case and bring the killer out of the shadows, the provincial police mobilized a task force of nearly 100 officers, including elite detectives from the Criminal Investigation Department and local district units, to focus all resources on the investigation. The timing of the crime, the first day of the Lunar New Year, presented a unique psychological barrier. Detectives attempting to gather intelligence faced immense difficulty. In accordance with local superstitions and custom, residents were extremely reluctant to discuss death or legal troubles at the start of the year, fearing it would bring bad luck. Many witnesses gave cursory answers, while others appeared annoyed and uncooperative. Yet, through tenacious information gathering, surveillance, and the systematic elimination of hundreds of potential subjects from the suspect list, the investigative net finally tightened. The authorities ultimately identified the prime suspect behind the brutal killing of Mrs. Linda, David Young Von Tha, the neighbor living right next door.
Drawing from a web of gathered intelligence, the investigative team systematically dismantled the initial theory that Mrs. Linda, born 1952, a resident of Han Lap Village, had been murdered during a robbery gone wrong. The logic for ruling out a property crime was grounded in the victim's profile. She was elderly, frail, and classified as an impoverished resident with no assets of significant value. Furthermore, the forensic sweep of the crime scene revealed no signs of forced entry, prying, or ransacking. Perhaps most telling was the fact that the victim's gold earring, though torn from her ear, had not been taken. With robbery off the table, the police pivoted their entire investigative force toward a more personal, sinister motive: a murder born of conflict. Through relentless information gathering and the methodical elimination of hundreds of potential persons of interest, investigators finally zeroed in on a prime suspect. The trail led them right next door to Mrs. Linda's immediate neighbor, David Zuong Von Ta, born 1981. The suspect's dark past. A background check on David revealed a history of violence. He held a prior criminal record for intentional injury. In a chilling incident from 2006 during an argument with his wife, David had strangled her until she lost consciousness. Seeing his wife lying motionless and believing he had killed her, he coldly informed people that she had fallen ill and died. Fortunately, alert neighbors intervened, rushing her to the emergency room just in time to save her life. The interrogation, alibis, and lies. With a suspect identified, the police summoned David to the station to answer for the suspicious circumstances surrounding his neighbor's death. Inside the interrogation room, David staunchly denied any involvement in the death of Mrs. Linda. He presented a series of alibis, attempting to account for his whereabouts during the critical time frame. However, eagle-eyed detectives noticed a small but significant detail: a fresh scratch on David's arm. When pressed about the origin of this injury, David claimed he had fallen off his motorcycle on the morning of the Lunar New Year. Seeking to verify this claim, investigators immediately deployed to the location where David alleged the accident took place. The alibi quickly began to crumble. Residents in the vicinity unanimously reported that they had neither seen nor heard of any motorcycle accident that morning. The smoking gun, DNA evidence. To secure irrefutable proof, the police obtained a blood sample from David and dispatched it to the Ministry of Public Security's Institute of Criminal Science for DNA analysis. The results provided the breakthrough the case needed. The biological matter recovered from under the fingernails of the victim, Mrs. Linda, was a direct match to David. The confession, a petty grudge turned deadly. Faced with the undeniable forensic results and the sharp, piercing questioning of the detectives, David's defenses collapsed. He finally confessed to his brutal crime. According to his confession, the motive stemmed from a trivial dispute. Sometime prior, while riding his motorcycle out of the alley, he encountered Mrs. Linda walking in the middle of the road. Despite honking his horn, she did not move out of the way, leading to a verbal altercation between the two. On the morning of January 28, 1917, the first day of the Lunar New Year, After consuming alcohol, the memory of that argument resurfaced in David's mind. Fueled by liquid courage and resentment, he walked over to Mrs. Linda's house, separated from his own by a single wall, with the specific intent to kill her. Finding Mrs. Linda home alone, David approached her. He strangled her with his bare hands and smashed her head against the ground until she ceased to breathe. The New Year murder. Final chapter. The killer revealed. Defendant David standing trial at the court of first instance. To cover his tracks, David orchestrated a scene to look like an accident. He took an electrical socket from within the house and wrapped the wire around the victim's hand, staging a tableau of fatal electrocution. After committing the murder, he calmly left the scene and proceeded to visit other neighbors to exchange New Year's greetings, meticulously crafting an alibi of a normal, festive holiday. At 4 p.m. that same day, Mrs. Linda's niece and her husband arrived to visit for the holiday. They found the house pitch black, with the door left slightly ajar. Calling out her name and receiving no answer, the niece pushed the door open and stepped inside, only to discover the horrifying sight of her aunt lying on the floor next to her bed, clutching an electrical wire. Believing Mrs. Linda was being electrocuted, the frantic relatives immediately cut the power at the breaker and attempted first aid while screaming for help. However, it was too late. The victim had been dead for hours. Initially, the grieving family believed Mrs. Linda had fallen victim to a tragic electrical accident. It was only later, when they noticed the strange injuries inconsistent with electrocution, that suspicion took root, leading them to alert the local authorities and ultimately unveil the truth.
Thank you for spending your time with us on Vietnam True Crime. If you're interested in this series, please like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest episodes.